Jeffro from Two Hacks Garage. Well, I'm sure everyone saw the wheel stand that Jumping Jack Flash, the J&J Speed and Machine nostalgia front engine dragster, did at the No Name Nationals. I did put some shorts out there and put a post out there, touched on it a little bit in one of the drag racing videos I had on that, but I never did really explain it. Reason I'm making this video, I got a lot of feedback on some shorts I did and also some posts. It was great feedback. Some of it was negative, but you know what? Everyone's an armchair drag racer these days. But the reason I'm going to make this video is two reasons. Jimmy asked me to because he had something very similar happen before in a car that he built probably 10 years ago, and then this happened. It's two different wheelie bar designs. Like I said, I'll explain all that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the video of Jimmy's dragster doing it. Then I'm going to show you a video of our dragster doing it. And I'm going to explain to everybody what actually happened and why. In this case, it exactly wasn't the wheelie bar's fault. It was my fault. With that, guys, let me show you what Jimmy happened before and now. Well, that was exciting. First off, that was a brand new car Jimmy built, I think, over 10 years ago. Let's just call it 10, 12 years ago. Anyway, that was literally a brand new car. And if you saw, it did run in the 550s. It was injected on alcohol, small block Chevy, and they were still working it out. Yeah, 550s at 125. It had a whole lot more into it, but you saw what happened there on that run. The first couple I showed you on that, well, that was when it was actually hooking and booking the way it's supposed to be. Now, mind you, you did see that huge wheelie. Well, what happened is Jimmy's wheelie bar on that, on the bottom, obviously I can't show you, but on the bottom it had a bar that was like a slider. So that thing slid in there and it stayed put and got pinned. On that run where he wheelied, what happened was his son, who was helping him that day, and mind you, that was his son's car. Jimmy was helping him shake it down. What happened was that pin didn't get put in. So when that was slid in there like that and that wheelie bar hit, it just came apart, came straight up like it didn't even have a wheelie bar, and came crashing down. On that run, Jimmy got banged up pretty good, and also the car got banged up really good. It bent the spindles, it bent the wheels, and it actually bent the chassis and ruined a whole bunch of stuff. Caused a whole lot of work for Jimmy to do after that run. Do you call it negligence? Do you call it forgetting something? Yeah, you know what? That type of stuff happens. However, when we built my car, we built the car just a little bit different in the back with the wheelie bar. And you can see it in the pictures when I show you at the end. My wheelie bar was set up where on the bottom, it's also kind of a slider, but it's got two holes in it. One hole is when it's slid out. And the reason we have it that way, and you'll see when it's high, is when it's in the high mode, it's about this high off the ground. And so that's when you're towing it on the track from, you know, the top end or to the staging lanes or wherever. It doesn't sit there and drag across the ground, bam, 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 and hit. But the second part of that is there's another hole in there that when Jimmy and I designed this wheelie bar, you pin it when you get up to the staging lane, so it's pretty much down at the ground. We found the measurement where we need to be, and what you do is you put that pin in there, and it's about that far off the ground. And if you need to adjust it more, there's heim joints on the top and bottom. The reason we built it that way is because of what happened to Jimmy's car. So like you saw in that wheelie, that doesn't happen. So when his car was basically in the transportation mode, if you want to call it on the track, it's just slid in there. You wouldn't quite tell. With my car, it has to be pinned. We talked about this, guys, a lot. Every single time we were building this car, this was one thing that we wanted to avoid happening, but it happened. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the video of us wheeling, and then I'm going to explain exactly what happened. Just to set the record straight, I'm going to show you what happened. So tell you what, guys, let's watch that video. All right, so the first couple videos I put in there were a couple passes we made, and you can see how the wheelie bar is down just a few inches off the ground and how it works. And then in the other videos I showed you is you can clearly see it. I didn't. I was paying attention to other things, how you can see the wheelie bar up and how when he crashed it down, how it did that wheelie. Now, the difference between Jimmy's first big wheelie 10, 12 years ago and this wheelie, well, Jimmy's first car, like I said, it was just a slider. When that thing hit like that, it slid out without that pin, and it basically had no wheelie bar at that point. So when we designed my car, like I said, still a slider, but it's got 2 pin locations. It still did its job. We had it in the up position, and I'll explain here why in a second, but it still literally did its job. That's what prevented him from going over and really crashing. Because if you looked, he went towards the wall, and I'll explain that reason here in a second also. So yes, the wheelie bar was not set in the right position, but it still worked as a wheelie bar and prevented damage to the car. In fact, if you look, the car's got no engine in it. The car I took completely apart. Literally everything was apart, checking all the welds and all that. It's the off season. I'll get into that with another video. Got some upgrades to do. But what I did is I checked the car completely over, make sure everything was straight, make sure the welds were good. We're all good. The only damage sustained to this was on one of the front wheels. All the spokes got loosened up. It needs to be trued up and retorqued, and I need to get new bearings. Spindles, chassis, everything is good to go. It did sustain a little bit of damage here that it scraped, and there's a couple other things that kind of got damaged that I'm going to address. Actually, I already have, but I'm going to show you another video. So what happened? So I'm going to set the record straight on this because there's been so much speculation on, oh, it's the wheelie bar design. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. No, the wheelie bar design is actually really, really good. It's a design that Jimmy has used in the past, so it is not the actual wheelie design. The problem is We were in a rush. Problem is, it was my fault. And trust me, at the top end of the track, I heard about it. Jimmy and I had a slightly heated argument, but you know what? It is what it is. Because we had talked about this many a times. Don't forget the wheelie bar. Don't forget the wheelie bar. Don't forget the wheelie bar. What we did. However, that little extra step of having those 2 pin positions really did save our ass. So what happened? Well, we got the transmission all figured out, and we made a pass, and it was pretty decent. That being said, we went back to the pits, made a few adjustments, and we go up to make a pass in between runs, and we end up flooding the engine. That's a whole nother story. Actually, nothing bad. But so we did is we rushed back to the pits. We're getting the methanol out of the engine. We're getting everything cleaned. We're putting new plugs in it. We're throwing a super tune at it. Because what our whole idea was, we're going to go back out there and make a super quick run as fast as we could, even though we knew the converter wasn't right, because we were going to race a friend of ours for fun. Well, in that mad rush of going to the staging lanes, flooding the engine, going back to the pits, trying to do all that, at some point, I put the wheelie bar up and hurrying back, because we only had a few minutes, back up to the staging lanes to get it fired, get some heat in the engine, do a burnout, and do all that fun jazz and make a fast pass. The wheelie bar did not get put back down in the proper position. My fault, beginner's bad luck if you want to call it, but the name of the game was Jimmy was fine. He was okay, banged up a little bit, but no injuries, and also the car was fine. So that was a huge learning lesson. The one thing we really tried to avoid, and Jimmy and I talked about this whole time building the car, well, you know what? It got us because we were in a rush. Learning lesson of the weekend, right? But at the same time, that little slight design change that Jimmy did to the wheelie bar still had the wheelie bar do its job for safety-wise, so it didn't hurt him and didn't hurt the car. Now, the other part, if you notice when that car came up, it went to the right. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, put 2 bars down, put 2 bars down, put 2 bars down. No, that's not the way these things are designed in a lot of ways. The reason that happened is because when we built the wheelie bar, get it all done, I get everything installed, the wheel was slightly cocked. So at some point when we got everything welded up where we wanted it on those bars, that wheel was cocked. Didn't quite notice it until at the track. So that's one thing that we are fixing. I don't have the wheelie bar here. It's at Jimmy's. What he's doing is he's actually making that, he's making a couple modifications to the wheelie bar just for adjustment's sake and just to make sure that wheel's straight. So yeah, that's setting the record straight, not the wheelie bar design. It wasn't the fact of something broke. It was, I was in a hurry and Jimmy wheelied, even though this is something that we had talked about quite often. I know it sounds like I'm rambling. In fact, that's always what I say. Jimmy's probably at his house working. But I just wanted to make this video kind of setting the record straight on what happened with the wheelie, why it happened. And you know what, guys? Beginner's bad luck, learning lesson, whatever you want to call it. I'm not glad it happened, but in some ways, I'm kind of glad it happened, even though Jimmy's okay. It proved how strong this chassis is. It proved how well we built it. And not only that, that was our first initial weekend out with the car. And like I said, we did learn a lot, and that was a huge learning lesson. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video of, Jimmy's old car doing a wheelie, this one doing a wheelie, and just kind of setting the record straight of what happened before and what happened now. And that one little design change Jimmy did with the second position pin really did save our asses in more way than one. Save Jimmy's, save the car, save mine. With that, guys, there's a whole lot more to come on this. If you notice, there's no engine in it. There's a reason why, and I'll get to that later. In fact, there's a whole bunch of goodies sitting behind you that's going to go to Jimmy soon. But yeah, that's the story behind the wheelie. While it makes for a really awesome photo, it doesn't make for a really awesome drag race. Till the next one, have a good one.